3 years ago, I stood in my childhood living room, clutching termination papers from my corporate job, watching my mother's face turn crimson with rage. She screamed that I was throwing away my future, destroying everything they had worked to build for me. My father stood behind her, his voice shaking with disappointment, as he demanded I abandon my foolish business dreams. Tyler sat smugly on the couch, arms crossed, watching our parents tear me apart for daring to choose entrepreneurship over his approved path of corporate safety. That night changed everything between us forever when they told me never to come back until I came to my senses. Growing up in suburban Cleveland, Ohio, I learned early that love in the Bradford household came with conditions. Tyler, my older brother by 2 years, seemed born with a golden ticket that guaranteed him first place in our parents' hearts, no matter what he did or failed to do. Our childhood home on Maple Street told the story perfectly. Tyler occupied the master bedroom on the second floor, complete with his own bathroom and walk-in closet, while I lived in the converted basement room with a single small window near the ceiling. When I asked my mother why Tyler needed so much space, she explained that as the older son, he deserved more privacy and comfort. The logic never made sense to me, but questioning it only earned me lectures about being grateful for what I had. Christmas mornings became annual reminders of my place in the family hierarchy. Tyler would unwrap expensive electronics brand name clothes and sporting equipment, while I received practical items like school supplies and discount store toys. One December morning when I was 12 and Tyler was 14, he opened a top-of-the-line mountain bike worth over $800. My biggest gift that year was a calculator for my math classes. When I expressed disappointment, my father scolded me for being selfish and ungrateful, reminding me that Tyler had earned his gifts through good behavior. The favoritism extended to every aspect of our daily lives. Tyler received weekly allowances for doing basic chores, like taking out trash, while I was expected to help with yard work, cleaning, and household maintenance for free because it built character. When Tyler brought home report cards filled with mediocre grades, our parents celebrated his effort and took him out for dinner. My straight A performances barely earned acknowledgement, dismissed as expected rather than exceptional. During high school, the inequality became even more pronounced. Tyler coasted through classes with minimal effort, spending most afternoons hanging out with friends or playing video games. Meanwhile, I worked part-time jobs at the local grocery store and pizza delivery service to save money for college, knowing that higher education would be my only escape route from this suffocating family dynamic. The college fund conversation revealed the full extent of their favoritism. My parents had been setting aside money for Tyler's education since he was born, accumulating nearly $60,000 by his senior year of high school. When I asked about my college fund, they exchanged uncomfortable glances before my mother explained that they had assumed I would figure out my own financing through scholarships and student loans since I was so academically gifted. Tyler's acceptance to Ohio State University became a month-long celebration in our household. My parents threw a graduation party, bought him a car, and spent hours discussing his bright future in business management. When my acceptance letters arrived from multiple universities, including several prestigious engineering programs, the response was polite congratulations, followed by reminders about application deadlines for financial aid. I chose Case Western Reserve University for their computer science program, working nights at a local tech repair shop to pay for textbooks and living expenses. While Tyler enjoyed dormitory life and fraternity parties funded by our parents' monthly checks, I survived on ramen noodles and library study sessions, dreaming of creating something revolutionary that would prove my worth once and for all. During my junior year, I began developing ideas for software applications that could streamline business operations in ways that existing programs couldn't match. I spent countless hours in the computer lab building prototypes and testing concepts that felt like pieces of a larger puzzle I was slowly assembling. The work energized me in ways that nothing else ever had, giving me hope that I might actually build something meaningful with my life. My excitement about these projects led me to share updates with my family during our monthly phone calls. Tyler would listen silently while I explained technical concepts, occasionally asking questions that seemed surprisingly insightful for someone studying general business management. Our parents showed polite interest, but always steered conversations back to Tyler's internship opportunities and networking events that would advance his corporate career. Everything changed during spring break of my senior year when I discovered something that shattered my remaining trust in my brother. I'd been accepted to several graduate programs and was considering my options when my academic advisor mentioned something strange during our meeting. She told me that someone had called the admissions office months earlier, claiming to be me and requesting to withdraw my application from their top-tier program. When I insisted I had never made such a call, she checked her notes and confirmed that the caller had provided my student identification number and other personal information that only I should have known. A cold realization washed over me as I remembered Tyler's surprisingly detailed questions about my college applications and scholarship submissions. I drove home that weekend with my stomach churning, determined to find answers to questions I was afraid to ask. Tyler's laptop sat open on his desk while he showered, and my hands shook as I scrolled through his email history. What I found destroyed any remaining illusion of brotherly loyalty or family unity. Dozens of emails showed Tyler's systematic sabotage of my academic opportunities, including correspondence with university admissions offices where he impersonated me to withdraw applications and decline scholarship offers. The most devastating message was one he had sent to the dean of my dream graduate program, written in my voice explaining that I had decided to pursue other opportunities and was no longer interested in their prestigious fellowship. That fellowship would have covered my entire graduate education and opened doors to research opportunities that could have changed my career trajectory permanently. I confronted Tyler when he emerged from the bathroom, holding printed copies of his emails. His face went pale as he realized his deception had been discovered, but instead of showing remorse, he became defensive and angry. He accused me of snooping through his private communications and claimed that he was only trying to protect me from disappointment and failure. According to Tyler, I was too naive and idealistic to survive in the competitive world of advanced academics and technology innovation. He insisted that his interference had actually helped me by forcing me to focus on more realistic goals that matched my actual abilities. The conversation spiraled into our first honest discussion about the jealousy and resentment that had been festering between us for years. That night marked the end of any genuine relationship between my brother and me, though I was still too stunned by his betrayal to fully comprehend how it would shape everything that followed. After graduation, I moved to Chicago and landed a position at Meridian Technologies, a mid-sized software company that specialized in business automation solutions. The salary was decent, the work environment was professional, and my colleagues respected my technical abilities. For the first time in my life, I felt valued for my contributions rather than compared to someone else's achievements. My apartment in Lincoln Park was small but comfortable, a one-bedroom space that I furnished slowly with secondhand furniture and discount store necessities. I established routines that brought me peace, morning runs along Lake Michigan, evening coding sessions on personal projects, and weekend explorations of the city's diverse neighborhoods and cultural offerings. Meanwhile, Tyler graduated from Ohio State with a business degree that our parents had fully funded, complete with textbooks, housing meal plans, and spending money for 4 years of comfortable college life. Within weeks of graduation, he secured a management position at Hartwell Industries, a manufacturing company owned by our father's golf buddy Jim Hartwell. Tyler's hiring process consisted of a single informal lunch meeting where he charmed Mr. Hartwell with stories about our family's long friendship and his eagerness to learn the business from the ground up. He started as an operations supervisor with a salary that matched what I was earning after 2 years of proving myself in the competitive Chicago tech market. Our parents' reaction to Tyler's immediate success was everything I had expected and dreaded. Sunday phone calls became weekly celebrations of his accomplishments, from successfully organizing a company meeting to implementing a filing system that had been suggested by his administrative assistant. Every minor workplace achievement earned elaborate praise and family dinner invitations that I was never offered. For Tyler's first promotion, 6 months later, our parents drove to Columbus for a celebration dinner at the city's most expensive steakhouse. They presented him with a new BMW as a reward for his professional advancement, justifying the $28,000 gift as an investment in his career image and transportation needs. When I mentioned that I had been selected to lead a major software development project at Meridian, the response was polite acknowledgement, followed by immediate redirection to Tyler's latest workplace triumph. The contrast in their reactions crystallized everything I had always known but tried to deny about my place in the family structure. Tyler's relationship success followed the same pattern of effortless achievement that had defined his entire life. He began dating Sarah Mitchell, a nurse from a prominent Columbus family, and their courtship became another source of constant family celebration. Our parents gushed about Sarah's beauty intelligence and perfect compatibility with Tyler's ambitious career goals. Within 18 months, Tyler proposed to Sarah with a ring that our parents helped him purchase, and the engagement party at our family home drew relatives and family friends who spent the evening congratulating our parents on raising such a successful and well-rounded young man. I attended the party and watched the festivities from the periphery, nursing a beer and counting the minutes until I could politely escape back to Chicago. During this period, I began developing the software application that would eventually change everything. Working evenings and weekends at my kitchen table, I built a program that could analyze business operations and identify efficiency improvements that human managers typically missed. The application used machine learning algorithms to process data patterns and generate actionable recommendations for cost reduction and productivity enhancement. The project consumed my free time and most of my savings as I invested in server space development tools and beta testing with small businesses around Chicago. I knew I was creating something special, but I also understood that transforming a working prototype into a viable commercial product would require resources and expertise that I didn't possess. I began sharing updates about my software development with my family during our regular phone calls, hoping to generate some interest or support for what I believed could become a legitimate business opportunity. Tyler listened carefully to my technical explanations and asked detailed questions about the application's capabilities, market potential, and development timeline. His interest felt like the first genuine connection we'd shared in years, and I found myself opening up about my dreams of entrepreneurship and independence. I explained how the software could revolutionize small business operations and described my plans for beta testing, investor presentations, and eventual product launches. Tyler's enthusiasm seemed authentic as he encouraged me to pursue the project and offered to help with business planning and marketing strategies. He suggested that his experience in operations management could complement my technical skills, and he proposed regular conversations to discuss challenges and brainstorm solutions. For several months, we maintained these collaborative discussions, and I began to believe that my software project might actually repair our damaged relationship. Tyler's insights about business operations were genuinely helpful, and his encouragement motivated me to push through technical obstacles and financial constraints that had been slowing my progress. Everything changed during a family gathering in November, when I discovered the true nature of Tyler's interest in my work. I had driven to Cleveland for our cousin's wedding and was staying at our parents' house for the weekend. Tyler had left his laptop open in the kitchen while he stepped outside to take a phone call, and I glanced at the screen while passing by. What I saw made my blood freeze. Tyler's email application was open to a message thread with Marcus Webb, a project manager at a competing software company called Dataflow Solutions. The email showed Tyler providing detailed technical specifications, about my application, including proprietary algorithms and implementation strategies that I had shared with him in confidence. The message thread revealed Tyler's plan to sell my innovation to Dataflow Solutions as a collaborative project between the two of us. He had already scheduled a meeting with their development team and was positioning himself as the business strategist behind the technical innovation. According to the emails, Tyler planned to claim equal credit for the software development and negotiate a partnership deal that would make him wealthy, while leaving me as a junior partner in my own creation. My hands shook as I scrolled through weeks of correspondence, where Tyler systematically betrayed my trust and stole my intellectual property. He had been documenting our conversations, photographing my development notes when I wasn't looking, and even recording phone calls where I explained technical concepts that he later repeated to Dataflow Solutions as his own insights. The final email in the thread was a draft message to Dataflow's chief technology officer proposing a formal presentation where Tyler would demonstrate the software application and negotiate licensing terms. The demonstration was scheduled for the following week, giving Tyler just enough time to steal my complete development work and present it as his own collaborative achievement. I confronted Tyler when he returned from his phone call, holding his laptop open to the incriminating emails. His face went through a sequence of emotions: surprise, fear, anger, and finally defiant justification. Instead of apologizing or showing remorse, he attacked me for violating his privacy and accused me of being paranoid and ungrateful for his business guidance. According to Tyler, he was actually helping me by connecting my technical work with real business opportunities that I was too inexperienced to pursue independently. He claimed that his involvement would benefit both of us and insisted that I should be grateful for his efforts to commercialize my innovation rather than suspicious of his motivations. The argument escalated as Tyler revealed the depth of his resentment and jealousy about my technical abilities and creative potential. He admitted that watching me develop something genuinely innovative had been eating away at him for months, reminding him of all the ways I had always been naturally gifted while he struggled with inadequacy and self-doubt. Our confrontation ended with Tyler's promise to cancel the Dataflow meeting and delete all the information he had collected about my software project. He swore that he would never interfere with my work again, and begged me not to tell our parents about his betrayal, claiming that the revelation would destroy his reputation and career prospects. I wanted to believe him, but trust once shattered doesn't easily repair itself. The damage to our relationship was complete, and I knew that continuing to share information about my business plans would only create more opportunities for him to sabotage my efforts. That weekend marked the beginning of the end of my connection to my family, though I didn't yet understand how far Tyler's deceptions extended or how willing our parents would be to support his lies over my truth. The months following my discovery of Tyler's email correspondence were filled with cautious optimism as I continued developing my software application while carefully limiting the information I shared with my family. Tyler seemed to honor his promise to stay out of my business affairs, and our interactions during family phone calls returned to superficial pleasantries that avoided any mention of my technical work. I was making genuine progress with my application development, having completed beta testing with 12 small businesses around Chicago who provided enthusiastic feedback about the software's effectiveness in identifying operational improvements and cost savings. The positive responses gave me confidence that I was creating something with real commercial potential. During spring, Tyler called me with unexpected news that initially seemed to suggest positive changes in his character and priorities. He explained that his job at Hartwell Industries was becoming increasingly stressful, and that he was struggling with performance expectations that he felt unprepared to meet. Tyler's voice carried a vulnerability that I hadn't heard since we were children, and he admitted that he had been pretending to understand aspects of business management that were actually beyond his knowledge and experience. He confessed that his supervisor had been expressing concerns about his analytical skills and strategic thinking abilities. The conversation felt like the first honest discussion we had shared in years, and Tyler's willingness to acknowledge his professional struggles seemed like genuine personal growth. He asked if I might be willing to help him improve his business analysis capabilities, and suggested that my technical expertise could help him solve some of the operational challenges he was facing at work. Against my better judgment, I agreed to provide assistance, partly because I wanted to believe that Tyler was capable of change, and partly because helping him felt like an opportunity to repair our damaged relationship. I began sharing some of the business analysis techniques I had developed while creating my software application, explaining how data analysis could reveal patterns that weren't obvious through traditional management approaches. Tyler was an eager student asking detailed questions about analytical methodologies and taking careful notes about the strategies I described. He seemed genuinely grateful for my help and repeatedly expressed appreciation for my willingness to support him despite our past conflicts. Over several weeks, I provided Tyler with extensive guidance about operational analysis efficiency measurement and process improvement techniques that were directly applicable to his work at Hartwell Industries. I even created customized analytical tools that he could use to evaluate different aspects of the company's operations and generate reports that would impress his supervisors. Tyler's performance at work began improving dramatically as he implemented the strategies and tools I had provided. He called regularly to share success stories about how my analytical approaches had helped him identify cost savings and operational improvements that his supervisors praised as innovative and insightful. Our parents' response to Tyler's professional turnaround was predictably enthusiastic. Sunday phone calls became celebrations of his analytical brilliance and strategic thinking abilities. They marveled at his transformation from struggling manager to rising star, attributing his success to natural business instincts that were finally being recognized and rewarded. For several months, I felt genuinely happy about Tyler's improvement and proud that my assistance had contributed to his professional growth. The positive changes seemed to represent real maturity and personal development that gave me hope for our future relationship as adults and colleagues. Everything collapsed during a family barbecue in July when I learned the horrifying truth about how Tyler had been using my help and manipulating our parents' perceptions of our relationship. The revelation came through an overheard phone conversation that destroyed any remaining trust between us forever. I had arrived early to help set up for the barbecue and was arranging chairs on the back patio when Tyler's voice carried through the open kitchen window. He was on the phone with our father discussing his recent success at work and the recognition he had been receiving from company leadership. What I heard made my stomach drop and my hands clench into fists. Tyler was describing the analytical innovations he had implemented at Hartwell Industries, but he was presenting them as his own original insights rather than techniques I had taught him. He explained to our father how he had been helping his struggling younger brother by sharing business knowledge and collaborative opportunities. According to Tyler's version of events, I'd been calling him regularly for guidance about my software project, and he had been generously sharing his business expertise to help me understand commercial applications and market opportunities. He portrayed our collaborative discussions as mentorship sessions where he provided strategic direction for my technical work. The most devastating part of the conversation was Tyler's characterization of my mental and emotional state. He told our father that I had been struggling with isolation and career frustration in Chicago, and that I was becoming increasingly dependent on family support and guidance to maintain my stability and direction. Tyler painted a picture of a younger brother who was brilliant with technical details but naive about business realities, someone who needed constant reassurance and practical guidance to avoid making poor decisions that would damage his career and financial security. He positioned himself as the responsible older brother who was patiently helping me navigate challenges that I couldn't handle independently. Our father's responses to Tyler's narrative were filled with pride and gratitude for Tyler's compassionate support of his struggling brother. He praised Tyler's maturity and selflessness in dedicating time and energy to helping me develop business skills and realistic career expectations. The conversation concluded with Tyler mentioning that he was planning to propose a collaborative business venture where his strategic expertise could guide my technical abilities toward successful commercial outcomes. He suggested that such a partnership would benefit both of us while ensuring that I had proper supervision and direction for my entrepreneurial ambitions. I stood frozen on the patio, listening to my brother systematically destroy my reputation and credibility while positioning himself as my savior and mentor. The manipulation was so complete and convincing that even I might have believed his version of events if I hadn't been living the actual reality of our interactions. When Tyler ended the phone call and joined me outside, I confronted him immediately about what I had overheard. His reaction was swift and defensive, but there was no surprise or shame in his response. He seemed annoyed that I had been eavesdropping rather than remorseful about his deceptions. Tyler's explanation for his lies was that he was actually protecting both of us by managing our parents' perceptions and expectations. According to his logic, our parents needed to believe that he was successfully helping me in order to maintain family harmony and avoid difficult questions about our relationship dynamics. He insisted that his version of events was essentially true since he had been providing valuable business insights that were helping my career development. The fact that I was also helping him seemed irrelevant to Tyler's moral calculations about honesty and fairness in our relationship. Our confrontation escalated as Tyler revealed his long-term strategy for managing our family relationships and professional competition. He explained that he had been carefully positioning himself as the family's business expert and strategic thinker, while casting me as the technical specialist who needed guidance and supervision for real-world applications. Tyler believed that this dynamic would allow both of us to succeed within clearly defined roles that didn't threaten each other's territories or create family conflicts about favoritism and achievement. He saw his manipulation as relationship management rather than betrayal and deception. The conversation ended with my realization that Tyler was incapable of genuine honesty or authentic relationship building. Every interaction between us had been calculated to advance his interests while undermining my independence and credibility. I knew that continuing to trust him in any capacity would only provide more opportunities for him to damage my reputation and steal my achievements. That afternoon, I made the decision to stop sharing any information about my business plans with my family and to begin preparing for the inevitable conflict that would arise when I pursued my entrepreneurial dreams without their approval or support. The stage was set for the confrontation that would finally force me to choose between family acceptance and personal integrity, though I still underestimated how completely my parents would side with Tyler's lies over my truth. By October, my software application had evolved into something truly remarkable. 3 months of intensive development and refinement had produced a program that could analyze business operations with unprecedented accuracy and generate cost-saving recommendations that averaged 15% efficiency improvements across all beta testing companies. The success of the beta testing phase convinced me that the time had come to transition from employee to entrepreneur. I had saved $38,000 from my salary at Meridian Technologies, enough to support myself for approximately 18 months while building my company and seeking investors for expansion capital. The decision to leave corporate employment wasn't made lightly. I spent weeks analyzing financial projections, market research, and competitive landscapes before concluding that my software had genuine commercial potential that justified the risks of independent business development. I scheduled a meeting with my supervisor at Meridian to discuss my resignation plans and potential consulting opportunities that would provide income during my startup phase. The conversation went better than expected, with my supervisor expressing genuine admiration for my entrepreneurial spirit and offering to serve as a professional reference for future business relationships. My colleagues at Meridian were similarly supportive when I announced my departure. Several of them had watched my software development progress during lunch conversations and recognized the innovation and potential of what I was creating. Their encouragement reinforced my confidence that leaving corporate security for entrepreneurial uncertainty was a calculated risk rather than reckless abandonment of career stability. With my resignation submitted and transition plans finalized, I decided to share the news with my family during our traditional Sunday dinner gathering. I drove to Cleveland that weekend with carefully prepared talking points about my business plan, market research, and financial projections that would demonstrate the thoughtful consideration behind my career decision. The family dinner that evening included my parents Tyler and Sarah, who had become a regular presence at family gatherings since their engagement 6 months earlier. The atmosphere was warm and relaxed as we discussed Tyler's recent promotion to senior operations manager and his plans for a spring wedding. I waited until dessert to share my announcement, hoping that the positive family mood would create receptive conditions for discussing my entrepreneurial transition. I explained that I was leaving Meridian Technologies to launch my own software company, describing the successful beta testing results and the positive feedback from potential customers who were eager to license my application. The immediate silence that followed my announcement should have warned me about the storm that was approaching. My parents exchanged concerned glances while Tyler's expression shifted from surprise to barely concealed satisfaction, as if my announcement confirmed suspicions he had been harboring about my judgment and stability. My mother was the first to respond, her voice filled with disappointment and disbelief. She asked how I could abandon a secure job with good benefits and career advancement opportunities to chase an uncertain business venture that might fail completely and leave me unemployed and financially devastated. My father's reaction was more measured but equally discouraging. He questioned whether I had sufficient business experience and market knowledge to successfully compete against established software companies with greater resources and industry connections. He suggested that my technical skills, while impressive, didn't qualify me to handle the marketing, sales, and financial management responsibilities that successful entrepreneurship required. I attempted to address their concerns by explaining the market research I had conducted and the positive responses from potential customers who had expressed interest in licensing agreements. I described the business plan I had developed and the financial projections that showed realistic pathways to profitability within 18 months. Tyler listened silently to my explanations before offering his own assessment of my entrepreneurial plans. He suggested that my enthusiasm about the software's potential might be clouding my judgment about the practical challenges of business development and customer acquisition in competitive markets. According to Tyler, my beta testing results, while encouraging, represented a small sample size that might not reflect broader market demand for my application. He questioned whether I had adequate understanding of enterprise software sales processes and the lengthy decision-making cycles that characterized corporate purchasing behaviors. Tyler's critique continued with concerns about my financial planning and risk management strategies. He pointed out that 18 months of personal savings might be insufficient to sustain business operations if customer acquisition took longer than projected or if unexpected expenses arose during the development and marketing phases. His analysis concluded with the suggestion that I consider maintaining my corporate employment while developing my software as a side project that could eventually grow into a full-time business opportunity. This approach would preserve my financial security while allowing me to test market demand and refine my business model without risking career stability. My parents embraced Tyler's assessment as wise and practical counsel that demonstrated his business acumen and protective concern for my welfare. They urged me to reconsider my resignation and follow Tyler's more conservative approach to business development. The conversation deteriorated as I defended my decision and challenged the assumptions underlying their objections to my entrepreneurial plans. I explained that delaying the transition to full-time business development would significantly slow progress and might allow competitors to develop similar applications before I could establish market position. My father's response was swift and decisive. He declared that if I insisted on proceeding with this reckless abandonment of career security, I would be doing so without family support or assistance if the venture failed and left me in financial distress. My mother's reaction was even more emotional. She accused me of being selfish and irresponsible, choosing personal ambition over family stability and security. She suggested that my decision reflected poor judgment and lack of consideration for the worry and stress my risky behavior would cause family members who cared about my welfare. Tyler remained silent during this exchange, allowing our parents to attack my character and judgment while positioning himself as the voice of reason and practical wisdom that I was foolishly rejecting. The argument reached its climax when I accidentally knocked over my bag, while gesturing during a heated response to my mother's accusations. The contents spilled across the dining room floor, including printed copies of my business plan, financial projections, and technical documentation for my software application. Tyler immediately moved to help collect the scattered papers, but as he gathered the documents, he began examining the technical specifications with apparent recognition and understanding. Within moments, he was pointing out sections of the business plan that seemed familiar, claiming that several key innovations were actually collaborative developments we had worked on together during our previous discussions. I stared in disbelief as Tyler produced his phone and showed our parents email exchanges where he claimed to have provided strategic guidance and business insights that had shaped my software development. The emails appeared to support his assertion that my application represented joint intellectual property rather than my independent creation. When I denied Tyler's claims about collaborative development, he presented additional evidence in the form of edited conversation records and manipulated documentation that seemed to validate his version of our working relationship. The materials were convincing enough that our parents immediately accepted Tyler's explanation without questioning its accuracy or completeness. My mother's anger shifted from disappointment about my career decision to outrage about my apparent attempt to steal credit from Tyler's generous contributions to my project. She accused me of being dishonest and ungrateful, trying to exclude Tyler from recognition and financial benefits that he had rightfully earned through his collaborative efforts. My father demanded that I acknowledge Tyler's contributions and develop a partnership agreement that would ensure fair distribution of any profits or success that resulted from our joint work. He threatened to cut off all family contact if I continued to deny Tyler's legitimate claims to shared ownership of the software application. The evening ended with my parents' ultimatum return Tyler's stolen intellectual property and abandon my selfish, entrepreneurial fantasies or face permanent exclusion from family relationships and support systems. They gave me 1 week to make the right decision and apologize to Tyler for my dishonesty and ingratitude. I drove back to Chicago that night knowing that my family had chosen Tyler's lies over my truth and that pursuing my business dreams would cost me every relationship I had ever known. The choice between family acceptance and personal integrity was clearer than I had ever imagined it could be, and I knew which path I had to take regardless of the consequences. The confrontation had revealed the complete extent of Tyler's manipulation and our parents' willingness to believe his deceptions rather than investigate the truth about our relationship and my achievements. There would be no reconciliation without surrendering my independence and accepting a subordinate role in Tyler's narrative about our family dynamics. That week in October marked the end of my childhood and the beginning of my real life as an independent adult who would succeed or fail based on my own efforts rather than family approval or support. The week following the family dinner passed in a blur of sleepless nights and difficult decisions. I spent hours reviewing my options, hoping to find some compromise that would preserve both my entrepreneurial dreams and my family relationships, but every potential solution required accepting Tyler's false claims about collaborative development or abandoning my business plans entirely. On Friday evening, I called my parents to inform them of my final decision. The conversation was brief and devastating. I explained that I could not and would not surrender ownership of intellectual property I had created independently, and that I would be proceeding with my business development plans regardless of their disapproval. My mother's response was immediate and final. She told me that I was no longer welcome in their home and that they would not maintain contact with someone who had chosen selfishness over family loyalty. My father added that they were deeply disappointed in my character and judgment, and that I would have to live with the consequences of choosing greed over gratitude. Tyler never spoke during the call, but I could hear him in the background, probably feeling satisfied that his manipulations had achieved their intended result of isolating me from family support while preserving his status as the favored son who could do no wrong. The call ended with my mother hanging up without saying goodbye, and I knew that my relationships with my parents and brother had been severed completely. The finality of the break was both terrifying and liberating, forcing me to confront the reality that I was truly on my own for the first time in my life. Within 2 weeks, I had completed my resignation from Meridian Technologies, sold most of my possessions, and loaded everything essential into my Honda Civic for the drive to Austin, Texas. I had chosen Austin because of its reputation as a startup-friendly city with lower living costs than Chicago and a growing technology sector that might provide opportunities for networking and business development. My new life in Austin began in a 400-square-foot studio apartment on the east side of town, furnished with a mattress on the floor, a folding table that served as my desk, and a secondhand chair I bought for $15 at a thrift store. The apartment's only luxury was high-speed internet service that would allow me to continue developing my software and communicate with potential customers and investors. The first year of independence was harder than anything I had ever experienced. My daily budget for food was $12, which meant subsisting primarily on ramen noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, and whatever produce I could find on clearance at the discount grocery store. I lost 23 pounds during those months, not from any intentional diet plan, but from simply not having enough money to eat adequately while funding my business development. My typical workday began at 6 in the morning and continued until midnight, with breaks only for meals and brief walks around the neighborhood to prevent my body from completely deteriorating from sedentary work habits. I wrote code-tested applications, researched market opportunities, and reached out to potential customers with a persistence that bordered on obsession. The isolation was perhaps worse than the financial hardship. I had no friends in Austin, no family support system, and no professional network to provide guidance or encouragement during difficult periods. Holiday seasons were especially challenging, as social media filled with images of family gatherings that I would never again be invited to attend. During my loneliest moments, I wondered whether my parents had been right about the foolishness of abandoning career security for entrepreneurial uncertainty. The doubt was particularly strong during months when customer acquisition lagged behind projections or when technical problems threatened to derail weeks of development progress. However, something remarkable began happening around month 8 of my Austin exile. The software application that I had been refining and expanding started generating genuine interest from potential customers who had heard about its capabilities through word-of-mouth recommendations from my Chicago beta testing participants. My first paying customer was a small manufacturing company in Dallas that licensed my application for 6 months at $800 per month. The contract represented validation that my software created real value for businesses and that customers were willing to pay significant fees for operational improvements and cost savings. Within 3 months, I had signed licensing agreements with 7 additional companies, generating monthly recurring revenue of $6,400 that allowed me to upgrade my living situation and invest in business development activities that had been financially impossible during my survival phase. The success attracted attention from other entrepreneurs and technology professionals in Austin's startup community, and I began receiving invitations to networking events and industry meetups that provided opportunities to learn from experienced business founders and potential mentors. One of those networking connections introduced me to Amanda Chen, a patent attorney who specialized in intellectual property protection for technology startups. Our initial consultation was supposed to last 30 minutes, but extended to 2 hours as Amanda reviewed my software documentation and expressed amazement at the sophistication and innovation of what I had created. Amanda's analysis revealed that my application incorporated several genuinely novel approaches to business operations analysis that would qualify for patent protection. She recommended filing applications immediately to establish legal ownership of my innovations before competitors could develop similar technologies. The patent application process required detailed documentation of my software's technical specifications and development history, which Amanda assured me would be straightforward given the comprehensive records I had maintained throughout the development process. She estimated that patent approval would take 18 to 24 months, but would provide legal protection that would significantly increase my company's value and competitive position. Everything seemed to be progressing perfectly until Amanda's preliminary patent research revealed a complication that could destroy my business before it truly launched. During her investigation of existing patents and pending applications, she discovered that someone had already filed patent claims for several key features of my software application. The competing patent applications had been filed 8 months earlier by Tyler Bradford, listing himself as the primary inventor and claiming ownership of innovations that were clearly described in my development notes dating back over 2 years. The applications included detailed technical specifications that could only have been obtained through Tyler's access to my confidential work during our supposed collaborative discussions. Amanda explained that Tyler's patent filings, if approved, would give him legal ownership of intellectual property that was rightfully mine, and could force me to cease using my own innovations or pay licensing fees to my brother. The situation represented not just financial disaster, but also complete theft of my creative work and business foundation. The legal battle to challenge Tyler's fraudulent patent claims would require extensive documentation proving the timeline and ownership of my innovations, along with evidence demonstrating that Tyler had obtained the information through deceptive means rather than independent development. Amanda was confident that we could build a strong case, given my comprehensive development records and the obvious discrepancies between Tyler's claimed invention dates and my documented work history. However, she warned that patent litigation could take years to resolve and might cost more than my startup could afford even if we ultimately prevailed. The discovery of Tyler's patent theft felt like a devastating setback that threatened to erase all the progress I had made during my first year of independence. However, it also crystallized my determination to fight for what I had created and prove that his manipulations and deceptions could not ultimately triumph over truth and justice. I knew that challenging Tyler's patent claims would require every resource I could muster and would test my resilience in ways that even the previous year of hardship had not prepared me for. But I also knew that surrendering to his theft would mean accepting defeat and validating his belief that he could take whatever he wanted from me without consequences. The patent battle would determine whether my exile from family acceptance had been worthwhile, or whether Tyler's predictions about my failure and dependence would ultimately prove accurate. Everything I had worked for and sacrificed depended on my ability to prove ownership of my own innovations and protect the intellectual property that represented my only path to independence and success. The patent litigation began in earnest during my second year in Austin, consuming enormous amounts of time and money that I could barely afford to divert from business development activities. Amanda Chen assembled a legal team that specialized in intellectual property disputes, but their fees quickly depleted most of my business savings and forced me to take on additional consulting work to fund the ongoing legal expenses. The case centered on proving that I was the legitimate inventor of the disputed software innovations, and that Tyler had obtained the technical specifications through fraudulent means rather than independent development. Our legal strategy required extensive documentation of my development timeline, including code repositories, email communications, academic records, and testimony from witnesses who could verify my work history. The breakthrough came when Amanda's investigation team discovered that Tyler had made critical errors in his patent applications that revealed the fraudulent nature of his claims. His technical descriptions included proprietary algorithms and implementation details that had never been published or shared outside of my confidential development notes. More damaging to Tyler's case was the discovery that his claimed invention dates were inconsistent with his actual technical knowledge and capabilities. Employment records from Hartwell Industries showed that Tyler had never worked on software development projects or demonstrated any programming abilities that would enable him to create the innovations he was claiming to have invented. The most compelling evidence came from Tyler's own digital communications, which Amanda's team obtained through legal discovery processes. His emails and phone records revealed extensive communications with Dataflow Solutions during the exact period when he was supposedly developing the software innovations independently. The email trail showed Tyler systematically providing my proprietary information to Dataflow Solutions while negotiating potential employment opportunities and licensing agreements for software that he claimed to have created. The communications made clear that Tyler had no understanding of the technical principles underlying the innovations and was simply acting as a conduit for stolen intellectual property. Amanda presented this evidence to Tyler's legal team with an ultimatum: withdraw the fraudulent patent applications immediately or face criminal charges for patent fraud and theft of trade secrets. The prospect of criminal prosecution was apparently sufficient motivation for Tyler to abandon his legal claims and agree to a settlement that acknowledged my exclusive ownership of all disputed innovations. The patent victory removed the legal cloud that had been threatening my business development and allowed me to focus entirely on growth and expansion activities. Within 6 months of resolving the litigation, I had signed licensing agreements with 37 companies and was generating monthly recurring revenue of $43,000. The success attracted attention from venture capital firms that specialized in business software investments, and I began receiving inquiries about potential funding opportunities that could accelerate my company's growth and market expansion. After months of presentations and due diligence meetings, I accepted a Series A investment of $2.8 million from Pinnacle Ventures, a respected, Austin-based venture capital firm. The investment funding allowed me to hire 12 full-time employees, lease professional office space in downtown Austin, and launch comprehensive marketing campaigns that introduced my software to national markets. Within 18 months of the venture capital investment, my company, Bradford Analytics, had grown to 52 employees and achieved annual recurring revenue of $4.7 million. The business success felt surreal after years of financial struggle and family rejection, but it also provided validation that my decision to pursue entrepreneurship had been justified despite the enormous personal and professional costs. I was building something meaningful that created genuine value for customers while establishing financial security and independence that no one could take away from me. During this period of rapid growth, I maintained minimal contact with my extended family and avoided social media platforms where I might encounter updates about my parents or Tyler's activities. The emotional wounds from their betrayal and abandonment were still too fresh to risk reopening, and I needed to focus entirely on building my business rather than processing unresolved family conflicts. However, information about Tyler's life occasionally reached me through mutual acquaintances who were unaware of our family estrangement. The news was consistently disappointing, suggesting that Tyler's professional trajectory had declined significantly since our confrontation 3 years earlier. According to these secondhand reports, Tyler's performance at Hartwell Industries had deteriorated after he lost access to my analytical tools and business insights. His supervisors began questioning his strategic thinking abilities and analytical competence, leading to reduced responsibilities and unfavorable performance reviews. Tyler's relationship with Sarah had also ended during this period, apparently due to stress and conflicts related to his declining career prospects and financial uncertainty. The breakup had been particularly difficult because Sarah's family had expected Tyler to provide stability and success that never materialized. Most concerning was the information I received about Tyler's legal troubles related to his patent fraud attempts. Although criminal charges had been avoided through our settlement agreement, Tyler's actions had become known within his professional network and had damaged his reputation among potential employers and business contacts. The combination of career failure, relationship loss, and legal complications had apparently left Tyler in a precarious situation that contrasted sharply with my own business success and financial stability. Part of me felt sympathy for his struggles, while another part recognized that he was experiencing the natural consequences of years of dishonesty and manipulation. The most dramatic development came during my company's third year when I learned that Tyler had been terminated from Hartwell Industries for performance issues and had been unable to secure comparable employment despite months of job searching. His unemployment was apparently creating significant financial hardship and forcing him to move back into our parents' house while continuing his search for work. Around the same time, I discovered through public records research that my parents' small accounting business was experiencing serious financial difficulties related to my father's health problems and reduced client base. Medical expenses for his heart condition had depleted their savings, and they were facing potential bankruptcy unless they could stabilize their income or reduce their obligations. The convergence of Tyler's unemployment and our parents' financial crisis created a perfect storm of family desperation that would soon force them to confront the consequences of their decision to choose Tyler's lies over my truth 3 years earlier. I knew that my business success and financial stability represented the only realistic solution to their problems, but I also knew that helping them would require addressing years of unresolved hurt and betrayal that had fundamentally changed my understanding of family loyalty and unconditional love. The stage was set for a reckoning that would test whether genuine reconciliation was possible or whether some damage to family relationships could never be fully repaired regardless of changed circumstances and mutual need. The call came on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 3 years and 4 months after my parents had told me never to contact them again. I was reviewing quarterly financial reports in my corner office overlooking downtown Austin when my assistant announced that my mother was on line 2, requesting to speak with me about an urgent family matter. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone, unsure whether to feel hopeful or defensive about this unexpected breach of our silence. My mother's voice sounded older and more fragile than I remembered, lacking the confident authority that had characterized her communications during my childhood and early adulthood. She began the conversation with awkward small talk about the weather and general inquiries about my health and well-being, carefully avoiding any mention of the circumstances that had led to our estrangement or acknowledgement of the pain her rejection had caused me. Eventually, my mother transitioned to the real purpose of her call with obvious discomfort and embarrassment. She explained that Tyler had been struggling with unemployment for several months and had exhausted his savings while searching for suitable employment opportunities in his field. According to my mother, Tyler's previous employer had provided poor references that made finding comparable work extremely difficult, and his applications for positions at other companies had been consistently rejected, despite his qualifications and experience. She suggested that Tyler might benefit from a fresh start in a different industry or geographic location. The conversation continued with my mother's explanation that she and my father had heard through mutual acquaintances about my business success and the growth of Bradford Analytics into a respected software company. She expressed pride in my achievements and suggested that my entrepreneurial experience had proven the wisdom of my career decisions. Finally, my mother arrived at her actual request: would I consider hiring Tyler for a position at my company, giving him an opportunity to rebuild his career while contributing to my business operations. She assured me that Tyler had learned from his past mistakes and was eager to make amends for any previous conflicts between us. The irony of the situation was almost overwhelming. The same parents who had accused me of stealing Tyler's intellectual property and demanded that I abandon my entrepreneurial dreams were now asking me to rescue Tyler from the consequences of his own failures and dishonesty. I told my mother that I would need time to consider her request and would call her back within a week with my decision. The conversation ended with her expressing gratitude for my willingness to think about helping Tyler and hope that we might be able to restore our family relationships. After ending the call, I spent hours walking around Austin, processing the complex emotions that my mother's request had triggered. Part of me wanted to reject their appeal, immediately allowing them to experience the same abandonment and isolation they had imposed on me 3 years earlier. However, another part of me recognized an opportunity to address the unresolved conflicts and betrayals that had poisoned our family relationships for so many years. Tyler's desperation and our parents' financial crisis had created conditions where honest communication might finally be possible. I decided that any consideration of helping Tyler would require a family meeting where everyone acknowledged the truth about past events and took responsibility for their actions. I called my mother back 3 days later and explained that I would be willing to discuss Tyler's employment if the entire family was prepared to have an honest conversation about our history. My mother agreed to the meeting with obvious reluctance, and we scheduled a gathering at their home in Cleveland for the following weekend. I flew to Ohio on Friday evening, rented a car at the airport, and drove to the suburban neighborhood where I had spent my childhood but no longer felt any sense of belonging. The family home looked smaller and more worn than I remembered, with obvious signs of deferred maintenance that reflected my parents' financial struggles. Tyler's car was parked in the driveway, a 10-year-old sedan that had replaced the BMW my parents had given him as a promotion gift years earlier. The initial reunion was stiff and uncomfortable, filled with nervous pleasantries and careful avoidance of any topics that might trigger emotional confrontations. My parents had aged noticeably during our separation, and Tyler appeared thinner and more anxious than I had ever seen him. We gathered in the living room where our final confrontation had occurred 3 years earlier, and I began the conversation by explaining my conditions for any discussion of Tyler's employment. I insisted that everyone acknowledge the truth about Tyler's theft of my intellectual property and our parents' willingness to support his lies over my honesty. Tyler's response surprised me with its completeness and apparent sincerity. He admitted to systematically stealing my software innovations and attempting to claim credit for my work through fraudulent patent applications. He acknowledged that his sabotage of my college applications and scholarship opportunities had been motivated by jealousy and fear of my natural abilities. Most importantly, Tyler confessed that he had manipulated our parents' perceptions of our relationship by portraying himself as my mentor and protector, while presenting me as unstable and dependent. He admitted that his version of events had been entirely fabricated to preserve his status as the family's success story while undermining my independence and credibility. Our parents' reaction to Tyler's confessions was a mixture of shock, disappointment, and defensive rationalization. My mother initially tried to minimize Tyler's actions by suggesting that sibling rivalry was normal and that everyone had made mistakes during difficult family conflicts. My father's response was more direct and honest. He acknowledged that they had chosen to believe Tyler's lies because they supported their pre-existing assumptions about family hierarchy and birth order dynamics. He admitted that they had been more comfortable seeing Tyler as successful and me as struggling, rather than confronting evidence that challenged their favoritism and expectations. The conversation continued for hours as we worked through years of accumulated resentments and unacknowledged truths about our family dysfunction. My parents gradually accepted responsibility for their preferential treatment of Tyler and recognized how their favoritism had damaged both of their sons in different ways. Tyler's breakdown during this discussion was complete and emotionally devastating. He described years of living with the knowledge that he was less capable and creative than his younger brother, while maintaining a facade of confidence and superiority that had become increasingly difficult to sustain. He admitted that his theft of my innovations had been motivated not just by greed, but by desperate fear that his professional failures would expose his fundamental inadequacy and destroy his position as the family's golden child. His fraudulent patent claims had been a last-ditch attempt to maintain his illusion of success and competence. The most difficult part of Tyler's confession involved his recognition that his dishonesty and manipulation had ultimately hurt him as much as they had hurt me. His inability to develop genuine skills and authentic relationships had left him isolated and unemployable, dependent on deceptions that inevitably collapsed under scrutiny. By the end of our marathon discussion, everyone had acknowledged their contributions to our family's dysfunction and expressed genuine remorse for the pain they had caused. However, I made clear that forgiveness would be a gradual process that depended on consistent demonstration of changed behavior over time. Regarding Tyler's employment, I offered him a position in customer service at Bradford Analytics, starting at entry level with opportunities for advancement based on performance and merit. The job would provide decent income and benefits while requiring Tyler to develop real work skills and prove his reliability. I established clear boundaries for our renewed family relationships, including regular family therapy sessions and ongoing accountability for honest communication. I also made clear that my financial success did not obligate me to solve their problems or provide ongoing support beyond what I chose to offer. Tyler accepted my employment offer with genuine gratitude and apparent understanding that this opportunity represented his last chance to rebuild his career and character. Our parents agreed to attend family counseling sessions and work toward healthier relationship dynamics based on honesty and mutual respect. 6 months later, Tyler was still working at Bradford Analytics, performing well in his customer service role and gradually earning the trust and respect of his colleagues. Our family therapy sessions had been difficult, but productive, helping all of us develop better communication skills and more realistic expectations for our relationships. My parents had stabilized their financial situation with help from improved business management and reduced medical expenses. They were slowly learning to treat both of their sons with equal respect and recognition, though changing lifelong patterns required constant effort and awareness. The most significant change was in my own perspective on family relationships and personal success. I had learned that genuine achievement required not just professional accomplishment, but also the courage to demand healthy relationships and authentic communication from the people who claimed to love me. Standing in my office that morning, looking out at the Austin skyline and reflecting on the journey from family rejection to business success to tentative reconciliation, I realized that the pain of betrayal had ultimately forced me to discover my true strength and independence. Sometimes the people who hurt us most become unwitting catalysts for our greatest growth and self-discovery. Real family love should elevate everyone involved rather than requiring one person to diminish themselves for another's comfort and status. The scars from my family's betrayal would never completely disappear, but they had taught me invaluable lessons about self-respect, authentic relationships, and the difference between approval and genuine acceptance. Building Bradford Analytics had given me financial success, but rebuilding my family relationships on healthy terms had provided something even more valuable: proof that I could demand and create the respect I deserved. My journey from rejected younger brother to successful entrepreneur to family reconciliation had shown me that true victory isn't about proving others wrong, but about building a life so authentic and fulfilling that their approval becomes unnecessary rather than essential. What's your experience with family dynamics and favoritism? Have you ever had to choose between family approval and following your own path? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like, subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming adversity, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's possible to rebuild relationships on better terms. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most painful family conflicts can become opportunities for the most meaningful personal growth and authentic connections.